Some evenings are the loudest moments of my life, even though nothing is making a sound. My name is Samuel, and I am 78 years old. And what took me most of my life to understand is that loneliness does not come from being alone. It comes from believing you no longer matter. I did not grow up lonely. I grew up in a house that always smelled like coffee and old wood, with 4 siblings, a mother who hummed while she worked, and a father who believed silence meant strength. There was always someone in the next room, always a voice calling your name, always a place to sit at the table even if the chair wobbled. When you grow up like that, you assume company is permanent, like gravity. You never imagine it could fade. I married young, not because I was wise, but because life was moving fast and everyone around me was doing the same. My wife, Margaret, had a laugh that filled spaces before words ever could. We built a life the ordinary way, with workdays that blurred together, weekends that vanished too quickly, children who grew taller without asking permission, and arguments that seemed important at the time but were forgotten by morning. Looking back, those years felt crowded, sometimes exhausting, but never lonely. I did not even know what loneliness really meant then. Loneliness arrived quietly. It did not announce itself when the children moved out, though the house did feel strangely larger after that. It did not arrive when Margaret and I stopped holding hands as often, because we were still sharing the same air, the same routines, the same unspoken understanding. Loneliness waited. It has patience. It waited until moments stacked up without witnesses. When Margaret died, people surrounded me. They brought casseroles, folded their arms around me, told me stories about her that made me smile through tears. The house was full again for a little while, and everyone assumed that was the hard part. But loneliness does not live in funerals. It lives in the weeks after, when no one needs to check on you anymore, when the phone stops ringing, and when you catch yourself turning to speak to someone who is no longer there. At first I told myself I was fine. I filled the hours with errands, with television left on for noise, with small tasks that did not need thinking. I believed loneliness was something dramatic, something obvious, something that belonged to people who had no one at all. I still had children, neighbors, a world that functioned perfectly well without my participation. That belief kept me quiet longer than I should have been. What loneliness really did was change the way time moved. Days stretched not because I had nothing to do, but because nothing seemed to be waiting for me. There was no one expecting a call, no one noticing whether I was early or late, no one who would miss me if I stayed inside all day. You start to feel like a spare part, still functional, but no longer essential. That is the part no one warns you about. I tried to outrun it at first. I joined clubs I did not care about, sat in rooms where people talked past each other, smiled when it was expected. I thought being around others was the same as being connected. It is not. Loneliness can sit right beside you, closer than a heartbeat, while you nod politely and wait for the meeting to end. I would come home more tired than when I left, carrying the strange weight of having been seen but not known. The turning point did not come from a grand realization. It came from a Tuesday afternoon. I was standing in the kitchen, holding a mug I did not remember filling, when it occurred to me that I had not spoken out loud all day. Not to another person, not even to myself. My voice felt unfamiliar when I tested it. That scared me more than the silence ever had. That afternoon, I sat down and admitted something I had been avoiding. I was lonely, and it was not a personal failure. It was not a punishment. It was a condition of being human, longer than most of the people you once shared life with. That admission did not fix anything, but it softened me. And softness, I learned, is where connection begins. I stopped asking how to get rid of loneliness and started asking how to live with it honestly. That question changed everything. I began to notice that loneliness speaks. If you listen carefully, it tells you what you miss, what you still value, what parts of yourself have not gone numb. When I missed Margaret, it was not only her presence I missed, but the way I showed up when she was there. Loneliness pointed me back to myself. I started small, embarrassingly small. I spoke to the cashier instead of rushing through the line. I asked my neighbor how his knee was healing and waited for the real answer. I called my daughter without a reason and told her about the weather. None of these moments cured loneliness, but they poked holes in it, let a little light through. I learned that connection does not need to be deep to be real. It only needs to be sincere. There were still nights that felt endless. Nights where memories arrived uninvited, where the past played like a film I could not turn off. On those nights, I stopped fighting the ache. I sat with it. I let myself remember the sound of laughter at our old table, the way my children's footsteps used to thunder down the hallway, the ordinary beauty of a life that once felt permanent. Loneliness softened again when I allowed gratitude to sit beside grief instead of trying to replace it. One of the most important lessons came when I realized loneliness was not always about other people. Sometimes it was about losing touch with myself. I had spent so many years being needed that when the need faded, I did not know who I was without it. So I started asking myself questions no one else was asking anymore. What do I enjoy now? What still makes me curious? What kind of mornings feel gentle instead of heavy? Answering those questions gave my days shape again. I began writing letters I never sent, to Margaret, to my younger self, to friends who had drifted away without any wrongdoing on either side. Writing gave my thoughts somewhere to land. It reminded me that I still had a voice, even when no one was in the room to hear it. Loneliness loses some of its power when it is named and expressed instead of swallowed whole. I also learned something difficult but freeing. Some people will not come back. Some connections end not because of distance or death, but because life changes shape. Accepting that did not make me colder. It made me braver. It allowed me to open up without clinging, to enjoy moments without demanding they last forever. Loneliness taught me how precious presence really is. As the years passed, loneliness did not disappear. It changed. It became quieter, less sharp. It became something I could sit beside without panic. I learned to treat it like weather instead of a verdict. Some days are overcast. Some days are warm. Neither says anything final about who you are or what your life means. If you are listening to me now and you feel lonely, I want you to hear this clearly. There is nothing wrong with you. Loneliness does not mean you are unlovable, forgettable, or behind in life. It often means you have loved deeply, that you have paid attention, that you are still capable of connection. Numb people do not feel lonely. Only alive ones do. Do not wait for loneliness to be fixed before you live. Invite it to walk with you while you do. Speak when it would be easier to stay silent. Reach out even if your voice shakes a little. And when no one answers right away, remember that your worth does not rise and fall with responses. At 78, I can tell you this with certainty. Life does not measure us by how many people surround us, but by how honestly we show up in the moments we are given. Loneliness is not the end of the story. It is often the chapter where we learn how to listen, how to soften, and how to find meaning that does not depend on applause. If tonight feels quiet, let it be quiet without turning it into a judgment. Sit with yourself as you would with someone you care about. You are still here. You still matter. And as long as that is true, connection in one form or another is never as far away as it feels.